Welcome to the journey of Pugging a +20 key, with yours, Mr. Damlow, and the tale of Milking Monk. Milking Monk has been through a lot already in the series, travelling across 16 key levels already, some with victories, others with betrayal and solace. As his travels continue, so does his experience, knowledge, and his declining mental fortitude. 4 key levels left to the mesmerizing beauty of a +20 weekly vote. Keep watching to find out the result of this journey in who knows how many episodes left as we milk this monk. Hello everybody and welcome to the next episode, and I really do hope that you enjoyed that intro. It was a pain making, but I think it's really cool and it's going to be coming along with us with this series. In this episode, we're starting things off slightly differently. A suggestion and comment that I agree with is to be looking at the character progression as well and the gear that's come with it. Now, I haven't had much progression on this character, to be honest. You've seen in the videos, not much loot has come through. But this week, we actually get some really, really nice upgrades. I believe I'm sat around 386 at this point in time. And if you notice, we get a tier helmet come through. Now, with this tier helmet, we don't take it straight away. That's purely because I want to jump into the raid, pug the raid, and potentially get some tier drop there. And if I get a tier helmet straight after, getting that one there, it would be very annoying. So I'm going to show you a few kills in which I get loot from. Teros being one of them. This is on heroic. And I'm able to just about tank it. And we get a very nice belt upgrade. Now, it is in our primal slot. So I go for the need and we'll keep hold of our original belt for now until we lose, until we replace our other section of the helmet. So, one bit of loot down, very nice upgrade there. Let's see what else we can get. We managed to make it to Daffia on a heroic, and you can see it's a very messy finish to this fight. We really push. And not to have to kill the ad. The boss is stacked up, electricity's everywhere, but we're able to just get it down, albeit very, very messy. And this is a huge piece of the puzzle at this point. Off this, we actually get a piece of tier. Now that's huge for us, not only because we get 2 set if we pick that helmet up now, but the catch this in the game, we can convert 2 pieces of gear now to get the 4 set. And in 1 week, we managed to get our 4 set. So we go back, we pick up this helmet, and we then navigate to the area to convert our pieces of gear. And really, this is where it gets exciting for our character. I was really surprised it happened, but it's why it's worth pugging into the raid and actually progressing through the raid, even if it does take some time. And you can see with those upgrades, with the belt and helmet, which was a huge item level upgrade, the gloves as well, that gave me multiple item levels increasing, we're sat at a very good position with a 4 set at 395. Now, that puts us in an entirely different realm in terms of our power. The Monk 4 set gives us tons of defensive capability, which means going into this next key, I'm not too scared. We're not done there, though, with leveling. We do have the opportunity to level up some of our items using our Valor points, and I believe they are becoming uncapped on that Valor as of next upgrade, so make use of them as you're increasing. This may be an area where I do want to, upgrade my IO overall to really upgrade my gear in total. So I squeeze out a few bits of points in there in terms of upgrading and update myself there. Now, I think it's kind of about time. I went to the auction house. I thought I'd recorded it, but I picked up a bunch more enchantments. So I enchanted all my gear, made sure I had everything on there. I also got a new weapon crafted as well, using the concentrated focus to be able to get a 402. Unfortunately, the person who crafted it for me didn't hit the 405, but that's put us in a nice position. And I think this was after one of my dungeons I'd done, so I may have the order out here. You notice with a few more upgrades in terms of the item level, we do just manage to push ourselves up to 397 on there. So this is where I'm going to be trying to squeeze out as much power as possible. So now we've done our weekly maintenance, perhaps we should start looking at the keys. And I have this week a plus 16 Azure Vault. And I think this is capable for me, especially after picking up the 4 set. Now, I don't really know how strong this has made me because I'm yet to tank off it, but I'm feeling fairly confident. We pick up a decent comp. The only thing that turns into a bit of a letdown is the amount of DPS that the enhancement shaman does overall. It's not too bad by any means, but definitely a bit more damage would have been nice. So we're coming into the first room, and in here I am wanting to pick up these lashes and almost move instantly to the second group to do another pull. Now, it's a bit scary, this, I'll be honest. It's very scary. I wait for the kick on the tender. I almost die straight away, which would have been a disaster, but we're able to get him under control. Now, I wasn't too sure on the timer that we would have, but actually, this isn't needed on this fortified week. The amount of explosives that go off is really dangerous and makes this pool a lot more challenging than it needs to be, and with the bursting, so definitely kind of a mistake. If I was to redo this, I think I would take them in maybe 2 separate pools in there, unless you had a priest to mass dispel it. I touched a death, move on, and we go for the next set of ads, which is again a double lasher pool. It's slightly RNG if they decide to cast straight away. One does go off that goes in the group, and the second one, and it gets a bit heavy on the damage front. The healers does a great job here. You know, range kicks should have been done on the far ones, which would have been nice. But we're able to get this pack under control too. And so far the packs are fine. I could use Ring of Peace as well, AoE stuns to kind of interrupt, paralysis as well to kind of reduce the amount of casts that are coming through. But our damage is looking okay. The Demon Hunter is pumping. Now, there's plenty of different options in this room on how you want to pull. I personally just decide to take the 2 trees together, and I like to desync them a little bit and not pull them instantly at the same time so that their casts aren't exactly the same. And there's a bit of clearance in there. So this kick does go off, but it gets dispelled. Now that is actually a massive disruptor. That polymorphs a player, and if anybody else is in their circle when the spell expires or is dispelled, they get polymorphed too. So you really, really want to kick these trees. I have a feeling the shaman wasn't the biggest fan of pressing that kick in this key, but it happens. You can't rely all the time on that. I wait till the first one's dead, and I then pull in the next tree just to try and keep progression around the room. I know I have my kick up soon, so we're perfectly safe. I come back a bit and I pick up all of these saplings, and I'm just generally kiting these saplings when they die, as we don't want to get caught in this blue. Unfortunately, the shaman does die and uses reincarnate. If that was me, if I was playing it, probably wouldn't use reincarnate. Much more important to have on the boss than on a ad that's kind of sat around 20%. Now, this boss is a slightly difficult one, or it's mainly a tank fight, to be honest. As you're tanking it, what your main goal is one, to survive so you don't get hit on all the defensive, and 2, try and make sure you hit as many of these trees as possible with the frontal. You see, I do quite a bit of different positioning, and this one wasn't too great at all. What I should have done is brought the boss a bit closer, but you're wanting to break up these trees, and the more you break up, and if you clear one whole side, it's going to make the fight so much easier for you. There's a couple of options. One is to do that from the middle. Oh, I'm just having a look. I believe we managed to hit all of them. Yeah, perfect. Oh no, one gets missed, so they're important that a defensive is used to survive that. We take quite a bit of damage. If it was tyrannical, probably a different story at this point. But with these leyline sprouts, you can either break them from the middle, or sometimes people take the boss to the outside and hit them inwards. Now, it's a bit awkward with the storming. I have to reposition a bit, but what I do is I just bring the boss that little bit more forwards to try and guarantee the hit. And you'll see this one's a lot more successful. I get 5 in total. We just have to taunt one to bring it over to me, and there's a lot less trees to take at this point. Now, we are able to break... Oh no, indeed we missed one again. Okay, so missing them, it happens. It's going to hurt you as a group. I'm not too sure if anybody dies. No, we are able to survive and get through it. So quite poorly done on our behalf, but we're fortified. We are able to get through that. Just as a DPS, just make sure you're keeping your eyes around the room and there's no trees to kind of get hit. Now we progress, and let me fast forward, as we only just need to go through these parts and kind of skip through the whelps, making sure not to hit them. There are a number of routes in this in which you do pull all the mobs at the whelps and you're able to skip the middle platform, but I don't think it's that pug friendly. So today I'm doing the more casual route, or the more, the normal pug route essentially. We pick up these ads, I save my cooldowns. I know I'm wanting to double pull somewhere in this room, and unfortunately we get really bad timing with that patrol. We could have stealthed past and pulled them back, but instead I decide, we're doing okay on our time. It's not going too bad. Let's just kill these as they are, and it is fortified, so maybe I should be being a bit more careful here. But honestly, in terms of these packs or this dungeon, I do think there are a few in which we need to double pull to really make it on time in general. Maybe I'm proving wrong, but in the hierarchies for sure. Now I see the shaman died. I tried to kite them up back, but unfortunately we pull aggro, so he ends up getting combat resed in the end. Not great for losing that combat res, but you know what? It happens as long as we're okay on the next pack. Now in this one in particular, the elementals, I wouldn't worry about them too much. As a tank, or even as a DPS player, the main thing you want to kick is that ice bindings. The ice bindings root you in place for like 5 or 6 seconds, and if there are swirlies, that will be the death of you. So save your kicks for those ice bindings. Now here I see the patrol coming along, and this is where I can save myself some time. So I'm just going to let them know we're going to do a double pull. I wait for them to position a bit carefully, and from that I group them together and we can use a few more defensives. Now unfortunately I lose some aggro here. I'm able to claw it back. I'm able to get it just about as the DPS is pumping. Now, I think someone also might get caught by the frontal. These Furies are kind of scary, but the main thing you need to know as a tank is they deal a massive frontal, that piercing shot, that will one-shot your group. You want to make sure that is faced away from your party, and as a DPS or even as a tank, you want to make sure that you try and stun it as best as possible and stop those casts from going off. Because those are the big tank busters, and on higher keys they are really going to hurt you. Now we get quite a few deaths around this. You see we're already 7 deaths in, so the timer is slightly worried. I'm slightly concerned about it, that we need to pick up some speed somewhere. But we clear this pack up. I wait for the res off, and I know we have one more pack on this platform. Now the shaman damage is a bit low overall at this point in time. You can see that it's currently reading as 43k, and I've done 38k myself. So fortunately, the Demon Hunter is doing a fantastic job in picking up some of the slack there. I see the Arcane Furies coming off. I do my AoE stun to stop the Furies doing their piercing shards. As a rogue, you know that you can lock these mobs up yourself. That's what you should be trying to do to help out your tank. I somehow practice my talents there, but I am just making sure that when these casts do go off, that I am healthy enough. Paralyze the other Fury to cancel that cast, and we finish up on this pack here and progress down to the next. Now, down here as well, there are potential for some double pulls. It completely depends on the patrol. I see the patrol is on the wrong side of the map. It's on the right side, unfortunately. But we can keep going. We'll take the constructs by themselves instead. That patrol, you can either take out these two and do them with these constructs, or the next pack. These mobs are very easy. They hit a bit hard, but the only thing you need to worry about is their frontal Arcane Bash. And you can simply step out the way for them. It is nice if they're synced up with their cast, but simply just bait it out. You see here, Constructs bash me, Arcane Bash. I can step out the way and not take the damage. I check to see where the patrol is and notice it is coming into that next pack. I let them know that we're going to be doing a double, he says. I didn't that time, but I presume they know. We pop our defensives here the same way we pop our offensive cooldowns at this point as well. You see, I'm focused on that keeper for the ice binding. I don't want that going off. And we're able to do a lot of damage. Now, the Demon Hunter is doing close to 300k damage. He's doing some insane stuff in there. I myself sat around 70k. Maybe that's something I do need to work on, is my offensive rotation to make sure I am squeezing out a lot of damage. 80k seems alright. And we're able to clean that pack up and move on to the next. Now, in terms of double pulling again, there is potential here to do another one. Now, I opt to just get the guards a bit low first of all, because I missed my taunt here, but that is fine. Simply desyncing their deaths will just help with the bursting. So instead, what I do is I wait until they're a bit lower, and then I taunt them in. And you'll notice I do the exact same thing. I'm going to keep focused on the keeper and make sure that that is kicked, as that is what would wipe us in this situation. Now, good thing to know, all your AoE stuns and everything works on this pack, so it's a not too bad of a pack. It looks scarier than it actually is, but it allows your group to use their cooldowns and really put out some damage in here. Now, if I was on a more good character, I'd be tempted to take this ad with the next pack, but just note, the Lieutenant has an aura that buffs all the mobs around him. And because of that, and I'm unsure where my damage is at the moment, how much I can take, I decide, you know what, we'd just kill him by himself. So I wait for it to get a bit low. And as the mob gets a bit low and the frontal breath comes out, I believe I look at Touching of Death and just moving to the next pack. Now these packs just annoying. There's a lot of swirlies, but we know now. We know the keeper can root you. We know to wait on that ice binding kick in there, and we're just able to dodge these swirlies and progress on. Next, other side of the room, same situation. We have a few more mobs that we can pull. We want the guard, and we want the other pack. So I'm gonna bring those two together. Now, worth noting, as a Brewmaster, and I use this a lot, and in the next fight, I'm actually spec'd so that my taunt gives the monster movement speed. And the reason I do that, oh my goodness, I get low there. The reason I do that, or spec into that, is actually so I can manipulate and move monsters about a bit quicker. You see, I do this in the next fight. My objective in this next fight is, 1, to make sure that the boss doesn't cleave anyone, and 2, move the boss as far away from the center as possible, because then we can damage him on the way back as he runs back into the center of the room. Now, in terms of pattern, it's really simple on this boss. He will cast a Draconic Add. As soon as he casts an Add, he will do a huge frontal cleave, and then I will row and taunt him across to speed him up. As a DPS, kick the Add, be aware of the orb, and kill the boss. Dodge everything. Dodging is priority. You can see, same thing. I wait for that to be killed. I touch of death that mob, and we get a bit more damage on this boss. And this goes terribly. First things first, you'll see that the healer eats an orb and dies very early on in this fight. Which is a bit tough on this. He gets hit by orb or swirly, I'm not too sure. Now, ideally, as a healer, or as the group, either one, you're wanting to keep with the group. You don't want to be on the other side of the boss, because then you're dodging differently to everybody else. You want to move around the room with them. You see the pattern's the same. I wait for the cleave. I bring and taunt the boss so it moves faster across to the Add, so we can cleave a bit. And we don't have any combat res, so I know we're kind of on a bit of tough time here with how much we can do. I'm making sure the Add gets stunned and kicked. I'm trying to heal up as best as I can. People are using defensives, which is great. I'm able to heal off some of these. In general, the damage isn't too bad. I wait for the cleave. We see the orb coming in. I try to turn the boss away for the cleave. I'm trying to heal. We actually get some lucky timing there with him running to the center. But it does mean we need to survive one more of these phases. So the most important thing here, that we're targeting the same ads. You have the option of like telling everybody that you're gonna be, you know, to rotate left around here. Unfortunately, the shaman gets caught by an orb as well, and it's just me and a demon hunter. But demon hunters are notoriously tanky with their leech. You'll also see I am sat on my touch of death. I'm not too sure whether to use it at this point, to be honest, but I end up doing it just to try and polish off these mobs. The demon hunter goes to go ahead of me and leave me with this one. So I decide, okay, I will pop the touch of death on that. And we will do this last 10% of health. So really nice carry by the demon hunter. And I'm able to, just enough with my defensives, survive this. No, we're still going over. We're still kicking that Add. We don't want the extra damage coming through. We're still playing the fight like normal. But we're able to clean this up with the two of us. And we probably lost quite a bit of time there, which is a bit concerning. I go to res. It's super unnecessary because people can teleport back really fast after we get this kill. If we didn't do this boss, if we wiped on it, that the key would definitely be done. Healer apologizes, but it's all good. We progress through the dungeon. This room, I mean, if it wasn't explosive and bursting, I'd probably pull all of it, even on fortified. But I'm conscious of those two bits, so I decide let's get a bit of a smaller pool. However, I do notice the healer runs in and pulls some more mobs. Now, if he thinks he can handle the pool, he's more than welcome to do that. The only concerning problem is that we very quickly start getting way too many explosives come in. I'm taking quite a bit of damage myself, and I'm also seeing that I'm losing some aggro. But 3 or 4 explosives go off, and it turns into a nightmare. What also really sucks is the storming keeps on me. Even though everybody dies here, I still get stunned by the storming, which is a huge shame because I'm pretty sure I could have kept alive on that pool. Now, to make matters worse, even, I get debuffed by my dog, and I pick the wrong teleport, and I'm looking back to see, can I go back? And I can't, so I end up having to run back and waste even more time. The only way we're timing this key is if the pools are a bit bigger, on a reasonable size, which doesn't go too well with the fact that the affixes are storming explosive. We already lose an explosive. You have to be really careful with these far rooms where they can spawn really far away on the initial pool. But we try and get it under control. We pick up all the aggro we need, and we clear off this room kind of successfully. And we manage to finish off these ads. A few deaths, and it's not great, 17 deaths at this point, but I think it goes to prove that maybe you don't need to do these larger pools if you're clean with it. Now, just to save time on the video, we do manage to progress through the rest of the dungeon and get to the boss without any more deaths. This boss is very straightforward. Our damage is pretty decent on it as well, and with it being fortified, this boss is actually kind of a joke. You can just run out the bombs now without taking damage. We move around the room and we're able to kill it. And even with these 17 deaths, you check the timer now, we have 4 minutes 45 left on it to kill the last boss. Now, I hate this boss personally, but we have a druid healer who's able to lose the slow stacks. So after the mana, the only thing I recommend is I move to the right side and I try and tank him near a wall, or while stood up on it. The reason why I go ahead and do that is so that when the orbs spawn and the crystals, they aren't spread around the entire room, and I lose aggro straight away, almost like that. But I do it so that the crystals aren't everywhere, and you will see as I walk up and I get a bit low and decide to pop my defensives, when these crystals spawn, you should see them spawn kind of roughly just around the boss on one side. We're not running over the entire room. We get 3 together, and I try and deal with the one next to me. Now, I can touch of death these orbs, but I'm going to hold it for when it gets a bit spicy. I do have to run forwards to clear my storming. And don't forget, storming actually gets rid of your movement debuff. It allows you to run around, so you can go ahead and do that. I pop some offensive abilities here to get some more damage in, and I try and help out as best as I can with these crystals. And I kind of dislike this boss in general. It's always kind of a worry. On Fortified, we're not too scared about it. We know we have pretty decent damage at this point. We get kind of fortunate with the orbs. I've been in a situation when the orbs are all over you, but actually the orbs themselves isn't too bad. The healing checks isn't too bad. We just have to make sure that we can kill these last few sets of crystals. I see ones come under the boss again. So I believe I finished that one up. Notice the timing's not too bad, and I touch of death this one to make it very clear, very easy kill. And we clear our storming, and we're able to finish up on this key and actually progress that 16 Azure Vault. We pick up another concentrated primal infusion, so potentially at some point we can get our 418 lariats, as that's going to be in our BIS slot. We get a nice chunky bit of IO, which is going to help us with upgrading. And there's some really nice shoulders that drop too. And I ask if they need it, but I believe they just leave. I think. And we get the belt come through. So you see I'm sat on 389 shoulders, which aren't great. That would be a massive upgrade for me. But unfortunately, we don't pick them up. But overall, a solid key. Even with 17 deaths, we had 2 minutes to spare. plenty of spare time in the key itself, and we're given a 17 Algafar Academy. And we're going to run through this in today's episode. We'll do one more key for this. Now, we haven't actually run this on our monkey yet, so this is going to be a bit experimental with how successful we're able to complete it. I'm going to fast forward the first bit, as there's not too much to it for the pool. We are going to pick up the lashes and the skitterflies. The main thing we have to be careful about these bigger pools are the explosives, so I'm going to be helping out with explosives as much as possible. I haven't really spoke about the affix much. In organized groups at a high IO, potentially healers can solo it, but while you're pugging, no matter what spec you are or class you are, just help out with the explosives. It's going to make your time a lot easier. So here we're kiting, we're picking up the lashes, we are giving ourselves a bit of space with Ring of Peace whenever that is up. As that's almost like a breather, we're able to recoup our HP, and we simply clear out this area. You can normally do bigger pools here, but down to the explosives, it just makes it way too difficult and unsafe. And you don't really want to start off the key in a possible negative situation. So I pick up the next lasher once all the skitterflies are dead. We just simply keep kiting, keep giving ourselves space. Now this next boss, the main thing that we want to do before we start the boss is we want to mark ourselves, or mark the tank, and let everybody know that you're going to want to stack up on the tank itself, mainly for the germinate, for when that comes up. And you also notice that I tell the group to rotate left on the germinate. What that means is we're simply going to be running around the boss on the left hand side so that we keep them nice and tight in there. That's the main thing that we're needing to focus on, and we actually want to bloodlust on the second ads because the first one doesn't do it. So you see germinate comes up, we are rotating left around the boss. They get slightly spread, but it's pretty good on the spread for the lashes. A lot of mistakes people do is they use their cooldowns here. That's something that you do not want to do in this case. You save your cooldowns for the second ads, as these are just almost target dummies. Now the branch mechanic, you see that green circle on my screen. That actually purifies your bleed. And you see on my party frames that the priest and the DH still has it. So you want to make sure you're in that green circle. We bloodlust off this. I put down a stun to try and help myself get aggro. I put down a Ring of Peace that the entire group should be standing in to help us out on the damage. And I also took Detox here, and I used that on myself to purify the disease on myself. Now it gets a bit messy here, but because this is the second, the ads that do not pop, we're not too bad. The healer does die, but we still have a combat res. The ad comes up, we kick it and bring it in, and we get a simple combat res back off on the healer. Now when the branch dies, you'll notice that we are stood in that green circle again. You will see that the bleed times out, and we get one more set of ads, but at this point we're fine focusing the boss. So all I do is I pop down a Ring of Peace, we put down Darkness too, and we are safe enough to just kill the boss and finish it off. For this next ad though, we don't really need to go through it too much. The only thing that I want to point out is the fact that there are tornadoes in it. They spawn fast, you want to move out of the way fast. You can simply LOS this cast, and you will see that I move him over to the side to get out the way of the current tornadoes, and to make it very easy to LOS the cast. So you'll see here we can simply pop behind the wall and be fine with it. Now a stray tornado, I believe, does hit the healer and end up killing the healer. I'm not too sure at one point, it might be right at the end. Yes, just there, the healer's on the left is dead. I do notice it, so I do run back and resurrect him just to save some time. Now, these next set of birds are really dangerous because they spawn all of the affixes. So they do bursting, they do give off the explosives. Now, we do have the priest, and I picked the priest up because of the mass dispel. To be able to dispel everybody massively, funny enough. Unfortunately, the healer does not do that, and they also stand next to the ads, which leaves us with this group. And I should have been able to tank it, to be honest. I held my cooldowns just a bit too much. I should have been using at this point. I thought I was okay. I have Celestial Brew, but I just go one global cooldown too much and end up getting picked off here. So here my health drops way too rapidly. The cast does go off and I don't react fast enough to it, which is a shame. I should have been able to kite and tank that and we would have saved ourselves a bit of time, but instead we do wipe once. When we come back, we are able to complete it. It was an explosive problem, not being able to get the explosives. I try and break up the bursting. The healer is able to keep us up, which is great from here. Good job by the priests themselves. If anything, just through the key, what would have been good is just more mass dispels, being able to really get rid of all the bursting at once. It's just so good to have. And even Shadow Priest in the group to be able to do that is just fantastic this week. Apart from this, the eagles are pretty straightforward. We burst them down. Now on this next boss, the damage ramps as the fight goes on. You will see under my name, I get a debuff, or we all get a debuff called Deafening Screech. And each time the boss screeches, that damage goes up. So I'm telling the group, let's throw the orb once that gets to 4. Or you could probably go to 5 on Fortified, but we'll do 4 because that's just a safe place to go at. So we're making sure we have some sort of defensive, so we're purifying some of the damage from the claw attack itself. It puts quite a nasty bleed on you. There's quite a lot of damage in there. So that is what I'm watching out for when it comes to the damage on this boss. The Savage Peck, there it is. I'm able to Celestial Brew that. I'm able to purify some of that damage off. Now, as a monk, really, I'm only wanting to purify when the healer can't keep me topped up or can't manage the amount of damage. You don't have to do it at red every single time. That actually works out as a bit of a bait. But generally, the healers I've been playing with have been a bit scary to be healed by them at times. Usually it's just a safer bet popping in that or purifying that stagger, and plus it does help them out too. So we're on Deafening Screech, we are on our 3rd stack, and you will see that we throw that out at 3 stacks instead of 4, which is fine. And this is where you can plop your Bloodlust. It takes a massive amount of more increased damage, so this is a really good opportunity to burn cooldowns and Bloodlust, and sometimes it's necessary on Tyrannical weeks. Because we've already got the ad down to 40% HP, it's not actually that bad in this case. We can continue as we are. Now, the Deafening Screech debuff resets whenever you throw the balls. That's one of the reasons why you don't want to throw it straight away, because you may have too much time on this stage. You can throw the balls again to redo the Deafening Screech again, to reset the timer on that. And I believe I begin increasing this in here. You will notice that I'm on the 3 stacks, however, though. Now, the reason is because we overlapped the markers. I stood on top of the DH, so both me and the DH have 3 stacks of it. So I opt just to throw this slightly earlier, wait for the next Deafening Screech, and then I throw it just to reset our stacks. Now, in here, this stage, although you have the tornadoes, you actually get orbs that drop on the ground too. You see that blue one right next to me. That gives you a massive amount of haste and also stops you from being pushed back by the wind. So something worth picking up that I don't think groups really make use of. And you can also tank that bird at the bottom of the stairs if you want to avoid tornadoes a bit easier. While we progress on, these packs can be nasty, and we end up struggling because of the explosives. I believe that is what kills the group at this point. So really this dungeon gets quite difficult because of the explosive problem. So helping out as much as possible is definitely the way forward at this point. We use a lot of AoE CC, we use a lot of stuns on this pack, and this is probably the slightly easier pack out of the two. So maybe we should have saved some cooldowns for the next one. But we're able to finish this up. Quite a bit of bursting on here. Unfortunately, we get to 4 stacks, but the healer is able to top us off, which is really great. I wait for the mana to come up. I checked their mana as well, and you see they are low, so I wait for them to drink up, and we get Toad to go. I pick up the 2 ads and kind of bing them together. I lose a bit of aggro because the Demon Hunter or the DK attacks instantly. Now we also get that Mythic Blast go up, and we also get the Breath. An awful start to it, and I almost die. I get so low. It just happens sometimes. What maybe I should have done is made sure I had both the aggro on there and then gone across. And make sure I get the Mythic Blast cast. That is the thing that will wipe you. It does massive damage to everybody. Now that we have them grouped, I am trying to keep myself up at this point, while also, as it's just me and the DH, just clearing the explosives at the same time. Because I know we need the DH's damage. I pop down a ring of peace. I'm making sure to try and get all these explosives so the Demon Hunter can just focus on damage itself. And between the 2 of us, the Death Knight's able to come back, and we are able to finish off this Ravager in here. So a nice recovery for a wipe that definitely would have finished us off and finished the key itself. Now, as the group gets back together, we stabilize a bit more. And something I want to put forwards is to always check your roots beforehand. Now, there was a comment about putting those roots up, and if that's something people are interested in, what roots I'm taking beforehand, I can put my MDT link in it so you can see it, although I think it is more helpful watching the root itself in play. But I actually mess up on my route in this key, and you'll see that I'll mention where I mess up, and I almost catch it, and it's very sad. But these ads, they're not too bad as long as you're getting the kicks. And in terms of tank damage, the main thing that you actually want to be kind of scared of is the battle axe slash, the bleed that it gets put on you. That actually does an incredible amount of tank damage on you, so just be wary of that coming through. But overall, we're doing pretty good at this key level. It's not too bad. I thought it would be worse, he says, with 11 deaths in there. But so far, we're doing okay. Now on this pool, I'm simply wanting to get these forages a bit low. I'm not wanting to go too big on the pool size, because if we do, I know we're going to get caught out on the bursting. So I opt to just pull this pack and slowly go into the next one, so it doesn't get out of hand. I think I could have been probably helping out a bit more on explosives overall. 100%, that's an area that I will be improving as the week goes on, but you almost have to get a feeling with these at this point. Now this is where my route messes up. On the left, there are a couple of those foragers that I should have pulled and should have killed, and for some reason I don't. And I wasn't too sure, looking back, I'm not too sure why, but at the time I was trying to remember the route itself and trying to figure out the percentage that I needed to be on at this point. And I do actually open up my Mythic Dungeon Tools add-on at some point just to check my route, and I don't catch it. And it's very frustrating, and we'll see the consequences of my actions as this key goes on. But what I should have done is grab those worms behind me now, drag them in with this Ravager, and simply cleave them down with this group. Because this Ravager can take a little bit of time to kill, so it's being efficient with our damage. We never really want to be damaging one thing at a time. Instead, I opt to go into the next group and start clearing out this table. And you can see our timings is getting a bit close at this point. We do need to make up some time somewhere. I could have potentially double pulled if we had a comp with a bit more AoE CC, but with our comp I think we was a bit limited as to what we could do at this point. My damage, however, is proving to be quite nice. That has improved quite drastically. You can see bottom right, I'm getting 70k, 60k on a pack of 4 mobs. So it's nice to see the damage of the monk actually improving, as I do believe they are one of the stronger classes in terms of the damage output for a tank. So it's a nice CC of the Death Knight there. These two groups, maybe they could have been pulled together and we could have saved and used all our defensives and our cooldowns for it, especially as it's fortified. There's something that you need to learn from week to week, the points at which you should be popping your cooldowns. Now obviously on fortified, you are wanting to blow them more on the ad packs that are a bit bigger, rather than just saving them for bosses themselves, because these bosses on fortified weeks, they're usually not too rough, usually not too bad. It's just getting there. That's a bit scary. So I have a Vinger piece to break up some of these casts that I put down, to cancel all of those casts and the channels in there. And I'm waiting for my stun to come up, that I can see it's in 3 seconds time. And you don't just want to stun randomly, you want to wait until they start casting to stun, as that's going to interrupt. If you just stun while they are not casting anything, yes, you will stop the attack damage that they're doing. But what happens is the spells that they would have done get queued up, essentially, and it means as soon as they're finished and unstunned, they will all cast at the same time. Now I get asked if we want to bloodlust this or the last. This boss is generally, it makes more sense to generally lust this. What we could have done is pulled a bigger pack and use lust then, because it's the 10-minute cooldown. It would have meant that we would have got 1 more lust in. Instead, we use our lust here, and that does mean that over the 32 minutes we only get 2 lusts in, 2 bloodlusts. So that is definitely something that could have been improved in this route, used it more effectively. Now Vexamus, how to do this boss effectively. As a tank, you might want to tell your healer, I'm gonna get 3 orbs every time, and dispel me after I get 3. Our healer themselves picks up 2 orbs themselves, which is fine, but that can get a bit dicey, and they decide to dispel themselves. So really, they shouldn't have to pick up any, and we'll be picking up 3 as a tank. Now, something to get into the habit with on this boss, that they just cast, the Arcane Fissure, that spell in particular, what you're wanting to do with that is, after the second one, you actually want to let an orb go through and hit them. The reason so is if you don't do that, you get a really bad timing on this boss, where they get the mana bombs and the Arcane Fissure at the exact same time, and it turns into a one-shot combo. So just a tip there, in between the second and the third one, just let a orb hit the boss once. So I would want to let one go through now, and what that does is that interrupts, gives the boss a bit of energy, and basically misaligns those 2 abilities. Not too bad on fortified, but something to remember going forwards, and hopefully on this channel at a later point, I can show you a hierarchy. Now here I look for my MDT, I check to see what percentage we should be at, and I fail to notice the fact that we're slightly behind on that percentage. So I go ahead, I keep up the pace, I make sure I try and keep the aggro and I don't lose it. And We keep going ahead. We get this big pool here. Now you can apparently keep these Echo Knights at the top of the stairs, and this, I practiced this in here, and it did seem to be the case that you can stand just underneath their cyclones if you keep them at the top and take no damage. But failing that, because they do decide to run around, I would recommend using any AoE stuns, blinds, interrupts, misplacements. You will see I use my AoE stun there. I use my Ring of Peace because we're wanting to keep the damage up. And the timer's getting a bit tight, 4 minutes 30 at this point. And with 12 deaths and a few problems over the key, we're getting really close to being able to time a 17 Academy, which would be really good for our IO. And it would give us an 18 key, which would be really close. So I risk it, I pop some move speed, I bring the group in out of line of sight as best as I can. We need to get the kick on that, and we come together and we start blasting down this group. 3 minutes 50, that is enough time to actually be able to time this key, which is great. Overall, it's a pretty good performance in terms of the Milking Monk itself. He's able to take the damage, he's able to keep up the pace, and I don't think it's too much of a stretch at this point for the healers healing him. There's still room for improvement in my gameplay and understanding of the class, and just making use of my defensives. I'm really bad at using my dampening magic, or dampening harm on that. Something I need to get much better at on this key. As a monk, there are lots of buttons that you do have, so, you know, button bloat is real on it. There's something to be aware of. I paralyze one of the spins. We want to cancel as much as we can, and I start bringing them in towards the boss. Now, we finish up on this pool, and if it was desperate, we could have even brought them in on top of the boss to try and help with the damage. It's a bit risky, but we know that this boss in particular has a really low damage output. I'm keeping an eye on the timer. 2 minutes 30. It's a bit close, but it is definitely doable at this point in time. So I'm trying to pop out as much damage as I can, and we don't have a bloodlust left for it. But looking at the timer, I know it's going to be tight, it's going to be close. So I myself am really quite happy at this point. The fact that this key has been saved in this time, because there was a point where I really didn't think that was going to be the case. 2 minutes left on 70%. It's getting close, getting ever so close. 65%. Now, this boss, sometimes people don't know how it works itself, and you may see orbs all over the place. If you look at the name frames, the nameplates, or the party frames on me, you see that people are getting a debuff. And that has either no number, 2, or 3 on there. Now, the way this works is every time you get damaged by an ability on this boss, you get a stack of that debuff. And at 3 stacks, you end up dropping a pool. So, what you need to do is keep an eye on your stacks. Obviously, try and dodge everything, but keep an eye on your stacks. And when you know you're going to be hit for free on that energy bomb, you can actually take your pool away and move it right at the back, or right to the side, out the way. Breath comes out, I eclipse fire. We have a minute left, 30%. Now here, I'm starting to sweat a little bit. Excuse me, I'm starting to sweat. I'm not too sure whether this is actually going to be possible. 20%, we're getting close. It could very well be a successful run. 18%, 45 seconds. It can get messy in here. You see, there are quite a lot of pools. I have one myself that I might be dropping soon. We have a lot of people on 2 stacks. The DH ends up dropping 1. And with 5% left, we are going to be successful. And I killed this boss. And with a sigh of relief, I think, oh, yeah, that's great. We're going to have an 18 key. Until the boss dies. And I look over to the right of my screen, and I see that we are 99.56%. And it broke my absolute heart. It just there's no words for it sometimes. These things happen completely on me. I knew that there was something slightly off with my route, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And this is, you know, there's really no excuses for it. These things happen. But at least it's my own key. I mean, so I was quiet a little bit, but unfortunately, we mistime it because of my route and being 0.8% off or whatever it was for it in the end. And that was missing those worms at that earlier point in time. So it's unlucky that that's what happened. We could have had the 18. But on the bonus side of this key, we are given a plus 16 Shadow Moon Burial Ground. And you know, we love those keys on this channel. Hopefully in the next episode, we can have a good run and get maybe a +2 on that and bump our key up to an 18 and progress from there. But we know we can do 17s. We know that this is now possible. So we're getting ever so closer to that +20 votes that we've been keeping an eye on all this time. And we get a new weapon too, which is also really, really good. Now, thank you very much for spending your time with me on this this journey, this adventure, this side of things. Hopefully you've learned a few bits around these two dungeons. I know this has been a longer episode, but we've had some nice progression on here, and we're inching ever so closer to the +20. So thank you for your time. Hopefully you liked the episode, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.